Happy New Year, everyone, and a warm welcome for the first 2025 episode of Growth Secrets, the podcast where we deep dive into the strategies and insights powering today's fastest growing companies. I'm Yannick, and in each episode, I'll expose the unique growth and marketing secrets that let these businesses thrive. Today, I'm speaking to Tim Dhondt, the go-to-market lead at Dripl. For those of you that have been living under a rock and don't know who Dripl is, it's the first ever dispenser, which is good for both your body and the planet. And Tim has been responsible for aligning marketing and sales within Dripl for the past years. Recently, Tim unfortunately announced he'll be leaving Dripl anytime soon for a new unknown challenge. Just in time to ask him everything about Dripl's growth secrets, right? So welcome, Tim, the first guest of the new year. First of all, of course, all my best wishes for you in the new year. And maybe you can tell our listeners and watchers a little bit about you and Dripl to start off.
Yes. First of all, thanks a lot, Yannick, for the invite. Happy to be here on your first episode of 2025. My name is Tim. I'm the go-to-market lead at Dripl. Dripl is an impact startup active in the beverage industry, and we help customers to ensure that there are no soda cans in the office anymore. We have built an all-in-one drink dispenser where we help them to hydrate healthy without the packaging.
Cool. And like how it always goes when a new year is starting, people are talking a lot about resolutions. Are there any resolutions that you can share for the new year or that you want to talk about?
Yes, I had two big resolutions. I want to have less stress. I think last year was a tough year for a lot of companies, also for Dripl. I experienced a lot of stress during that time, and also want to build some new habits for the long term. I think that hasn't been a good year for me in 2024 in terms of habit creation, so I want to pick that up again.
While preparing for this episode, someone told me you're like a passionate runner. Is that somewhere in the habits then, or are they more focused towards marketing and business in general?
I think my running habits are already on point. I think I need some extra habits indeed in creating a more productive work environment. I think that's more important for me today.
If you have any hacks there, you can always share them with me because being productive for like at least 8 hours straight daily, it's something I think a lot of people still struggle.
Yes, it's a constant battle, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get so many triggers. I'm also like someone who always has like over 100 tabs open on my Chrome. So that doesn't help anyway.
I get that. It's the same for me.
Okay. Yeah, maybe let's dive into Dripl's marketing. And what I really like about Dripl's marketing is that you guys always seem to refer to something called the Refillution. I really like that. And I also think it's super smart strategy to create like somehow a shared mission with your audience and your customers. Can you tell us a little bit more about the strategy there?
Yes, definitely. I think the revolution started like somewhere when the first days when we were in the garage in Ghent. I know we were brainstorming about marketing ideas. We had to be very creative. Of course, we had not that much of a budget at that time. We wanted something to really stand out, but the revolution came out in one of the first posts we made. I think that's something that really stuck with us. I think some of the interns really affirmed it, that this was a good idea to work on that, and so we kept building on that. And now, let's say 4 years later, we're still using it in every LinkedIn post we use today. So I think it's been organically built into our marketing strategy by accident, let's say. So we came up with it. It was a good sounding name, and then we use it for a lot of different things. It's on our t-shirts today. We use it in everything. And I even see that there's some people also copy it. So some people are also using it in some way. So that's also always a nice compliment.
Seriously? The same word they're actually using, or?
Yeah, we were using it like the first 2 years, not really consistently, but we used it a lot. And then I think EcoVer, a big brand in sustainable products, came up with in one pager that also included the Refillution. Like we were really pretty sure that they came up with it from our LinkedIn posts.
That's super nice. I think you should see it as a compliment because they have like I think totally different audience. Yeah, not the different audience, but like a different product segment.
Yeah.
But they at least have like a shared mission, I assume. So cool. And you also mentioned that a lot of the marketing is organic, right? Or at least it seems to be. What's the approach here? Because I think most marketers and people in go-to-market know that the reach, etc. Organically, it's all really declining, and you have to pay to play on most of these platforms. How do you guys make sure that you are reaching enough of the right and relevant people?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think it really depends on the stage of the company. I think organic reach needs to work well in the first phases of your startup or your go-to market, and that's what we try to do in the beginning. So starting off with Dripl, we had to choose, of course, our social media channels and come up with creative ways to reach a broad audience without a budget. But you see, there's also a fatigue in organic content for some way. So you have to build the fundamentals there in the first 1, 2, 3 years to make sure you have a consistent story, and then it needs to move towards a more paid strategy. That's what we see also today. We had some very good years in organic content creation where we saw a big chunk of our pipeline created from organic reach, people posting about it, and that worked for a while. But the bigger you get, the more important it gets to also include some more mature marketing tactics in your strategy.
And how do you align that with social selling and that kind of tactics? Because yeah, these go hand in hand. And of course, what we see is that a lot of these brands, they can become like personalities, and they have like people within the companies posting stuff. I think especially in impact driven businesses, it's a really nice tactic to get along with.
Yeah, I think it's something that I talk about a lot with different marketeers about the social selling strategy at Dripl. I think it's really important that everyone within the company also embodies our mission, and I think that's something we of course include in the hiring process, but also of course in their day-to-day. It's really important to always breathe what we do online, and I think it's a vital part of being a refill ranger. Everyone at Dripl we call refill rangers. That's something that an intern came up with a couple of years ago. And we want to create that vibe, but it's also a very important part, definitely in sales. I think it's very important to really keep posting stuff about the things we do. We do a lot of fun stuff, and I think it's important to share with others how we do it and why we do it, and keep repeating that story to reach as many people as possible in the most organic way as we can. So next to the sales targets we also had LinkedIn targets where everyone needed to post a couple of times per month. And definitely when we built growth campaigns where marketing and sales align to make sure we build bigger campaigns and everyone is involved, that's twice as important to make sure you get your reach higher with the social selling.
Yeah, but what you also see a lot, or it's a trend that has been up for a couple of years already, but I keep seeing more of it, is like what they call the audience magnets, where people have to put in a certain comment and then they reach like sort of lead magnet. Are you also approaching that kind of tactics in order to boost the reach, like to have more engagement on the post, etc., or any other hacks that you see there?
Yeah, great question. I think for us, we have two audiences. Let's say we have our buyer personas, which the ones we sell to, but also the people who drink from our Dripl refill points. Those are the end consumers. And of course, it's easier to reach our end consumers, but we want to include the buyer personas in that journey. So it's important for us that we try to find a mix between the two. We want to build campaigns that speak to a large audience. Of course, we have our normal content stream that's directly for our buyer personas and office managers. But a large chunk of the campaigns we do is, of course, very broad about talking about the problem. I think a lot of marketeers talk about the problem. And the way we do that is, of course, that we ensure the message gets reached by the end consumers, but they have to tag or to include their office managers or our buyer personas in those conversations. So we did a couple of campaigns, I think, over the years where, of course, they have to refer their office manager. I think we had a campaign once where we wanted to give an award for the best office manager, and then everyone, of course, has to involve his or her office manager in the campaign, where it's, of course, an easy way for us to get in touch with them and start building.
Yeah, like hosting an award. I think every company should consider it one day because it's like it makes people really go nuts, right? We once did it for Playmobil, the toy manufacturer in Germany, and we hosted like the Daycare of the Year award, and all the daycares they wanted to win like a new toy corner. It was crazy. What we saw there is like I think we had over 1 million people visiting the website, full of 100,000 email signups. Whenever children are involved in sharing stuff on social media, people really go nuts. It's crazy to see that.
I think the downside of that is, of course, that there are a lot of awards that are hosted in different and many different environments. So I think that also devalues the awards that are awarded today. So I think it's nice to have, and it's cool to build some nice campaigns, but you really have to stand out and make sure that your awards really fits into a specific niche, not just a very broad niche. I think we have a lot of broad campaigns that really don't really hit the mark for me.
Yeah, I get it. Looking at other marketing channels, like which ones have proved to be super effective for Dripl, and
Yeah.
most especially why?
Yeah, I think that has evolved over the years, of course. I think we don't necessarily look at marketing channels, but more like the go-to-market channels. So everything in terms of sales and marketing is included when we double down on certain channels. The most important one in the beginning was definitely outbound sales. I think we were starting up in the high days of outbound sales where we had very nice reply rates, could do mass outbounding with definitely significant results. So that's the way we started out, and I think a lot of startups really need to start off with that. I think that's a mistake that's often made within young companies, that they start off with a lot of marketing initiatives. Of course, you can experiment there, but it's easier to experiment in your sales process. It's within a small atomic network, let's say, and that ensures that you can make sure you test and validate your messaging before you really bring it to a broader audience. So I think if you look at the channels we used in our go-to-market, the first was outbound sales. We learned a lot there. We used that a lot. Yeah, relying on that for a big part of the first years at Dripl. But that, of course, that transitions towards more marketing channels, where for us, LinkedIn was, of course, the most important one. Of course, if you look at different marketing channels, there's a lot to say that people can use all the marketing channels, and let's hope one works. We decided deliberately to make sure we chose one channel, which was LinkedIn. There were definitely times we neglected our Instagram account, which was more for employer branding and basically. But LinkedIn was the main channel where we doubled down upon and did a lot of campaigns. And I think that really, really worked well in that time. We love organic focused on our buyer personas and of our end users, and that was the biggest marketing channel for us, where we really focused on in a very deliberate way.
Yeah, I really also think that a lot of companies have been thriving on outbound strategies for the past years. What I see today is that, yeah, of course, every channel after a while it gets saturated. And I think it's also something that's more and more happening to outbound. Yeah, I think all companies, or at least a lot of companies, are doing outbound today, which results in, like, example, me, I don't even have like an official title on my LinkedIn for now. And even me, I just get, yeah, let's say 5 to 10 messages every week from people trying to sell me a course or a membership or anything else. I think it's crazy, and I think people also don't do a lot of effort in there. Like, they just want one message and they try to sell you immediately. I think there are also a lot of great memes about that.
Yeah.
But what's your take on that? How do you approach it today? Do you still strongly believe in outbound, and how do you approach it?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people say on LinkedIn, and what I see a lot in the different posts, is that cold calling is dead, or outbound sales is dead. But I don't really think it depends on the timing. It's really the timing of your company that really depends which channels you should use. In the beginning, just like I mentioned, outbound sales is a very strong channel to validate your assumptions. I'm starting off a new project, and the way I approach the go-to-market is once again with outbound sales, but I know it's going to evolve into more mature marketing channels over the coming months. And I think that's the way you have to approach it. Definitely in the beginning, outbound sales should work. If that doesn't work, I'm pretty sure your marketing channels also won't work. It's really looking at it from your company and your own timeline, instead of the timeline of 2020 was big for outbound sales, which was true in some cases. But of course, in 2024, you can still do very efficient outbound campaigns if you start off your company with when the timing is right. I think one thing that's very important in go-to-market is of course the timing of your startup. Most companies have great teams, great products, but the timing is very important. Your message resonates very well at a certain time, you will get your replies with outbound mailing. So it will be definitely something that's based on the timeline of your own company, not on the timeline of so many million others.
Maybe to build a little bit further on that, I saw like a workshop of yours in the Better Growth community a while ago. It was about marketing and sales alignment. And yeah, you were also talking a lot about the tech stack and also the outbound tech stack. I see a lot of people, or at least, yeah, I also do a lot of consulting for companies, and yeah, we implement tools like Clay, etc. What is your view on that? I think a lot of people still use Apollo, others use Lemlist. What's your take on the most modern outbound tech stack, and what can people take away from that?
Yeah, I think if I look at our outbound, how it's evolved over the years, I think we started off really with outbound sequences via HubSpot. So it was really very immature. Then we switched towards Apollo, but we never really stepped away from that because it was a very good channel for us to do the different outbound motions we wanted to test out. There was a point where we wanted to switch towards Clay, but that's also the moment where I saw that all outbound rates were really dropping in a significant way. So we were in our timing, it was kind of past a decade of outbound sales. So I didn't switch to tools like Clay, which I would have switched to if we were way earlier in our go-to-market, where we had to test a lot more in different segments. But we were at a point that it wouldn't make a tipping point in our go-to-market strategy. So I stayed away from those tools. If I would start over again, I would definitely look into tools like Clay. I did do the best research I could to make sure I made a good decision. And if I would start over again, definitely Clay would be on top of my list to create a very automated structure and use those. But the main thing I find in outbound sales is that you really have to make sure you have a lean tool stack. I think a lot of companies use very different tools next to each other. They have Lemlist and Apollo and also use Clay. I think that will never work because you really don't have a real strategy there to make sure you can hit the mark. And I think it's important to choose for which outbound motion you want to go for. You double down on that and choose one tool to really go towards that and train your team in working on that one. We had a very small team, but a very small team that was only focused on Apollo. I think that's really worked well. If we had 5 different tools, that would have gone sideways, I guess.
Yeah, I guess keeping it lean indeed is the main takeaway, because that's also a pitfall that we get into a lot. There are so many tools. There are mail hardeners, there are tools to warm up the inboxes, etc. It basically never stops. Now there are also so many Clay alternatives already, AI powered outbound tools. Like I said, it just never stops. And indeed, keeping it lean, I think that's some really good advice.
I think that's I think for a lot of companies, I think that's the most important part, but also the most difficult part, because it's very easy to start off with a new tool. Logging into Clay, it's like 5 clicks and you're on it. So it's the same for every tool, and in no time you can have like from one tool you used in the beginning to 20 tools in like 6 months. And it's very important that you be aware of this, and that your role as a go-to-market lead or a professional there to make sure that you minimize the amount of tools in your tool stack. If, let's say, it's like something I also use in my wardrobe, if one thing goes in, something has to go out. I think it's the same for the lean tool stack. If you use one tool for something and you want to use another one, you have to get rid of the other one and start using that one, or keep the other one and don't use the next one. So it's really having that click in your mind when you start a new tool on, is this the thing we need right now, to make sure we keep it lean? Because yeah, clicking and logging in and inviting some people is pretty easy. Of course, sales businesses are built to make you do this, but yeah, you have to be aware that it's a common pitfall, of course.
So one tool in, one tool out. That's basically the mindset that probably all the impact-driven companies are following, I assume. But because you see it, you see it more and more. If you look on Twitter and even LinkedIn, you see like that they call it the SaaS fatigue, where people are really tired of all the subscriptions of $30 to $100 a month. And yeah, like there is a guy, his name is Kyle, and he also posted like all the new AI tools, their pricing models, and a lot of them they also charge per use, the number of things you do with the tool or something alike. And people are getting more and more away of like the fixed subscriptions where you pay like let's say $100 a month, and like you say, yeah, people just in teams, it goes really fast. I remember in my agency days, yeah, whenever the credit card statements came in, Yeah, there were like so many tools that no one even know like who bought this, why are we using this, are we still using it? And that's yeah, indeed the common sense there. It has been gone for a while in a lot of companies.
Yeah, but I think in harder times economically, it will be important to really strip that down. We're all working towards making profitable companies. I think in times of high growth, it makes, of course, sense to try everything and do a lot of stuff. But I think those days are gone, and it's really time for us now to really make sure we fix the basics first, and then after that, maybe explore some other stuff if it's relevant, of course.
Clear. Maybe let's shift from outbound to experimentation. Like Dripl is like a David versus Goliath story, I think, where you compete against Coca-Cola and PepsiCo vending machines within companies that are still there in a lot of places, I guess. And that's basically why they came up or invented growth hacking, which is like which goes hand in hand with experimentation. How do you embrace that in your role? Because yeah, as I already mentioned, when I think of growth hacking, yeah, it's basically invented for companies like Dripl. So I'm really eager to hear like the secrets there and and the tactics. So what can you tell us about experimentation within Dripl?
Yeah, I think that's not that many secrets about our strategy there. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think on the creative side, I think there you make the difference. And we did a lot of brainstorms in the days to make sure that we really built campaigns that were impactful. And then, of course, combine it with yeah, focusing on the right channels that really work for us. And I think when you choose on working on certain growth initiatives, you really have to make sure that you work on the right channels that work for you. I think that's one of the things that's often forgotten in like the whole growth funnel. I think basically if we start campaigns, we also start in looking where we need to play, let's say. So every time leads come in, you have the lead and deal sources. I think that's something that's common, of course, but it's not really used in the best way possible. If I look under the hoods of some companies, they know it somewhere, but they really don't use it in their growth initiatives. So what we do is we start off a quarter and make sure that we have a good view of how the leads came in, and of course which one closed. You have the leads that came in through a certain way, but also the way it closed and why it closed. For us, let's say it was events at some point that we did some events there, but let's say if we saw in the days where organic reach was pretty high and we had a lot of inbound coming from that way, really shifted our focus and start marketing initiatives and brainstorming about how can we make campaigns that boost our organic reach even further. So that's how we started off with tackling the right fields to play. And when we found a field to play, then we, of course, did a lot of creative brainstorms. I think thing we did there is as we were yeah, we needed to be very resourceful. We were a pretty small company with limited resources, where we always used everyone involved in the growth process. So that's everything from marketing, sales, and customer success. We hosted brainstorms together to make sure we can create very effective campaigns with a small budget. We had a very cool brainstorm format we used in different ways. I think our marketeers had really nice ways of coming up with stuff. So we all jumped into a meeting.
Tell us more about the brainstorm format.
Yeah. Um, I think there was a period where we did it a lot. It was somewhere in 2023. We did like every 2 months a real big brainstorm with a lot of stakeholders involved. Also, the CEO was involved at some times. Where we included different stakeholders from the company and really did a brainstorm format where we start with associations around a certain team. Let's say, for example, in Belgium, we had Mij Plasticvrij, or I don't know how to translate it, but it was a big thing for us, of course, as we want to remove as much packaging as possible. So we jump into a meeting room, start with association things, then came up with different ideas in the format. So everyone writes down ideas, gets to vote those ideas. And then we select those. I think a very important part in the phase after the brainstorm was once we had all the ideas, we selected a few that were really resonating with everyone. And then we used a scoring model to really prioritize these initiatives to make sure that we were pretty confident that yeah, the thing we wanted to create was also going to work. And I think that's something that's important. Of course, we have so many ideas and so many things to test. and you can choose just one thing based on your gut feeling. But I think the RISE model we use in terms of evaluating our initiatives was really valuable in choosing the right initiatives at the right time. And the RISE model is something we used after the brainstorm. So once the brainstorm was done, we had some initiatives listed out. Everyone has to do this scoring in private, not biased by anyone who has the loudest voice in the meeting room. I think that's also a common pitfall. And then you score everything on terms of reach, the impact, also the confidence you have, and the effort we have to do to create a significant campaign. And you score on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, you choose. And then you create a score to make sure that you have the best way or the best initiatives on top of your list. And those are the ones you double down upon, and all the rest you leave aside.
Cool. I have been using the ICE scoring method for many years. I think it's super nice that you added an R for reach.
I also found it later. We also started out with the ICE model, and then I stumbled upon it like with ChatGPT probably.
You should claim it. You should claim it, Tim. You should claim it.
I'm definitely not going to claim it, but it's a nice addition because the R is for reach. The ICE model is pretty known, but the R is for reach, which was very important for us in terms of organic content. We want to see how many people can we reach with this, how many end consumers can we reach, and how can we, in that way, get in touch with as many office managers or HR managers as possible.
Yeah, which is super nice indeed. Whenever you prioritize, it's especially in a David versus Goliath type of setting. Yeah, it's super cool that you can get as much reach as possible. Of course, can you give us maybe an example of like a winning experiment you maybe recently done? Because you mentioned May plastic free or May plastic. I really like those things. You tap into those trends, I assume. But can you give us another example of like an experiment that was really successful recently?
Yeah, it really depends on the stage. I think one of the big campaigns indeed we did was where we did a campaign where we gave away our refill points. Of course, win actions is something that always works pretty well.
Always.
CEO at the time wasn't really a big fan of that because, of course, it's not really linked to our mission in that case. But of course, we had to make as much reach as possible. I think it's a campaign from a couple of years ago that we tested out, and we put our refill points for 1 week at different companies. And I can say that from the 4 companies we placed a machine to test, 3 of those became customers afterwards. So that was a pretty successful one. We're just having a broad campaign, reaching a lot of different companies with this campaign. Having, of course, also a filled pipeline because of that, and then also converting the people who are also part of the campaign. That was pretty.
Yeah, there's also this a Belgian company. You probably know the guy, but now the company is called Ginger Jack. I don't know if you know it. It's like a Jimber competitor. He used to do like juices, like cold pressed fruit juice. And what he did was he targeted high growth companies. And he just started off with like a couple of companies. He delivered like a box of the cold pressed juices there, and then whenever you ran out of those, of course you could order, but you were also allowed to nominate another company that you know, and then he would also drop off a box of free juices there. And it's like a really nice referral method to get a lot of people in front of your product. A lot of people like it. It tasted really good. And then a lot of people of course ordered. Of course, you go one by one. It's not super fast, but it is like a kind of nice tactic that you can scale whenever you have a lot of product, I assume.
We also tried some things in that area, really focusing on the referral strategy. I can't really confidently say we really cracked that code yet, but we did a lot of initiatives there to really test things out. I think sending out tasting box is also very important for us to really get a taste of the Dripl drinks that are inside our refill point. We tested out it in the same way or similarly, but it really didn't strike a chord. It was very manually intensive for us. So we are also looking to scale up as much as possible. So that was something we didn't do and it didn't work for us. But of course, happy it worked for someone else.
Yeah, I think referrals. I think that we could probably do a separate podcast episode about referrals. It's like a really big thing, and as you say, a lot of times it's super manual intensive. Like it's people have to do all of it manually, sending a lot of messages. That's also what triggers me a lot now. I see a lot of AI-powered referral tools pop up for newsletters, for podcasts, but just for mostly for software companies in general. But have you experimented with that kind of tools already, or have you seen some of them? Because it really triggers me.
Yeah, we didn't really use those tools, but I think it's something to explore if we want to evaluate further our referral strategy. I think it's something, it's always on the list if we come up with ideas and if we want to do things, but it's always on number 3 or 4 in terms of the impact it's going to create. It's big, but the effort is always pretty huge. If you look at the RISE model, in terms of the effort, it really always comes down on the bottom of the list somehow. And I think that really makes sure that it's really hard to really double down on things like that. The thing we did that worked best, but was also very intensive, of course, included in our sales process. So on the marketing side, we tested some things, but yeah, it was a lot of effort for limited results. And what we do is really include in our sales process. If we have happy customers, we call them up and let them refer with tasting boxes for other companies. And that's the most effective way. I think including it in your sales framework in some way, it's the most efficient way because you talk to them and it's easier to really get that
Yeah,
referral.
I guess so. And also, yeah, there's this famous quote from Sean Ellis, who basically coined the growth hacking terminology. He once said that growth basically is super simple. You just have to figure out the way that your best customers found you, and you have to find more customers through that way. If you look at that, whenever I check the Dripl website, I see a lot of big company logos already. How do these companies find you, or what's the tactic that moved the needle most to target these big companies?
I think the quote is perfectly right. I think it's something that's often forgotten by a lot of companies that really the channels you use and how you build your go-to-market is built on the channel that work best for your best customers. I think it's really perfectly written out written out like that. And the way we use it is, of course, we have all the channels listed in our deal-making process, and every quarter we evaluate and double down on those channels. And let's say that's outbound sales, and we do more ABM on outbound, let's say. But something we saw recently is that a lot of events work really well for us. It's something that's always worked, but didn't really convert. I think the combination of having a mature company and doing the events is really the trigger for us to really double down on that from that part. And a lot of our big customers really come from that way. Some of their colleagues test it out on an event. They really like it. They come very enthusiastically back to the office with an idea to implement it there. And that's a big push for us to get them into our sales process and start working on that. It didn't really work in the beginning because we were, I guess, not mature enough as a company to really move the needle with the events there. But now, as we have a more mature company and a more mature go-to-market, I think it's easier to include in our process today.
Yeah, it's also, I think in my life, I did over hundreds of growth marketing workshops with all kinds of companies. And it's like the common thing you always see whenever people think of growing their business, they think of acquiring new customers. And whenever you put it in a pirate funnel, people immediately go to the acquisition and the awareness stages. But yeah, the easiest stages are often the retention and the referral stage. If you look from, yeah, who's already there, how can we get more of these people, and how can we make them bring, or how can we make satisfied customers bring new customers? Yeah, that's often the easiest thing to do, but people always think of new tactics, new tactics, new tactics, and that's yeah, pitfall I've run into quite a lot of times, let's say.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. That you really have to look at the same things, but on different in different ways. So let's say you have a channel like events, and that works well. Okay, why does it work well? But also look at it from another way. How can we push it a little bit further? And instead of really looking, okay, events is working, let's also do SEO. And building on that, you really have a very scattered go-to-market, but really focusing on one thing and making sure that you get that right or better every time. It's like the 1% increase every time you do an event. Really ensure that we can pull this off as a really effective marketing channel today. We did a couple of 10 events per year at a minimum. So that really sums up a pretty big chunk of our pipeline today.
Yeah, and that's also something. Yeah, I think you mentioned we have limited resources. I think resourcefulness is one of my favorite words whenever it comes to marketing and startups, etc. But you have to keep like many balls up in the air. Like, how do you measure everything? Because channels like events, but also podcasts, for example, it's really hard to track the ROI of it. How do you do that? Because you mentioned the link with pipeline already a couple of times, so I think you're, yeah, really doing a great job there. What can people learn from your approach there?
Yeah, I think once again, looking into the channels and instead of really looking into the different initiatives that to work there. Let's say LinkedIn is a channel for us, and a lot of things are involved in our LinkedIn strategy, of course. But if we really want to keep an overview, we use that in HubSpot. I think HubSpot is a very, very big ambassador of HubSpot. You can see my slides of the growth stuff. It's always HubSpot, and I always include it. And I think all the dashboards we created there is a way we really look at the different channels, how everything came in, or fridge and lost reasons are also very important to really give a good overview of the business. Dripl is a big volume business. We have a lot of different small deals. We place one machine mostly at one customer because we have a very direct go-to-market approach towards the mid-market. Of course, we're also entering the enterprise segment, but that's something that will evolve over the coming years. But as we have a lot of volume, we really have to make sure that we get the pulse of what's working right in our dashboards in HubSpot. And I think tracking what's coming in what way is really the big driver here. So we have our growth meetings looking at to what channels are working. And our CEO is also very good at that to make sure that we focus on the right things in our go-to-market strategy.
Super cool. Maybe a slightly different question, but like you guys are an impact-driven company. You put sustainability and environmental responsibility at the forefront of everything you do. And that's also super clear in how you approach social media, etc. But how do you balance the growth of the business with your environmental mission? What challenges have you faced there already? Because, for example, you mentioned that you do a lot of outbound. Yeah, it's not something I really associate with impact driven companies. I don't know why, to be honest, but I don't associate those two. But what challenges have you faced there already?
I think in our department it's fairly limited because of course the bigger we grow Dripl, the bigger our impact. Of course, that's the fun part of being an impact startup. The bigger you get, the bigger your impact also gets. But in other departments, it's pretty difficult to make sure that we put our ecological mission first. A super simple example is, of course, the vans we use to transport our Dripl refill points. Of course, it would be very easy to work with electric vans. That's what we do today. But in the beginning, that wasn't the most obvious choice in the beginning. Next to being an impact startup and growing, the most important part in the first 3 years is surviving, of course. If we don't survive, our impact is pretty negative. So the first important thing was also make sure that everything we do, make sure we can go to those first 4 years, which we did right now, and now we're a stable company. But going through that, really had to make some choices that aren't in the best interest of our mission today. Of course, over the years, we are going to refine it, and it's, of course, in the details. Most of the things we do is, of course, very impact-driven, and the mission is in front, but in some ways, it's not possible. Just like our first van wasn't an electric van. We had to go across country and to Amsterdam with one van, and an electric van really would have negatively impact our business, of course, with a negative footprint. Some small details that we had to consider, and those really help meetings about that to make sure is this the right decision. It's something we didn't do on purpose. It's really something that we thought about a lot.
And then I can assume that you have like eco rangers that see the non-electric van and that could kill the entire mission with one tweet or something. Did those things happen, or
Oh yeah, I have a lot of those stories.
how do you get along with that? Because I think you're really doing a great thing. You have a great mission as a company, but of course, indeed, in the end, you need to make money as well, and that also impacts the choices there. But not all people understand that. How do you how do you resonate with those kind of people?
Yeah, I often have a hard time with that. We talk to a lot of people in sustainability, and they start asking very technical questions, and I get it from their standpoint, of course. But it really moves away from the story we want to bring. In the long run, we make a big impact, of course. Creating a machine like that is also something that's really impactful for the environment. But it's in the long run having a lot of drinks in not in reusable, not in single-use packaging that will make the biggest impact. And you have to look through those things. It's like saying electric cars are not a good thing because you have to make electric cars and have to make the batteries. It's a transition we're making today to make sure we move towards a greener world. And a lot of those initiatives really have also their flaws, but it's really moving in that direction and pushing that forward. That really shows how the momentum needs to keep going. And I think that's something that's, when that's overlooked, I tend to get pretty annoyed, to be honest.
Yeah, I can really assume that I would also like I would be the baddest person to do that. But
Yeah.
I think whenever you keep the mission in mind, I think and you stick to it, Yeah, I think for yourself and your own beliefs, I think it's all right. But then indeed, like I said, one tweet could kill the entire thing. It's yeah, it's crazy that the people don't think about the backstory, etc. Yeah, these things happen, but you have to deal with it. Good that you did that in a proper way.
Yeah, we had to do it a lot in the proper way.
Yeah.
Last 4 years, I had to encounter that a few times on different occasions.
Cool. Maybe something else I really wanted to touch upon during this episode is segmentation and the nurturing part. I know you're like a really big HubSpot believer. I think that's the least we can say. How do you approach that? What hacks can you tell people there? What strategies do you use there? And where do you see like nurturing evolving over the coming years, also with AI, etc.? I think I know that's a lot of companies in one, but maybe tell us a little bit more about your segmentation and nurturing approach.
Yeah. So the way we started out in our go-to-market strategy, we had a very broad scope, and starting off with an MVP, we had 5 different machines in different segments. Then we doubled down on one segment, which was the office spaces. And within the office spaces, we segmented into the size of the company. So we started with three segments, and we split up our most important segment into 2 segments. You had the small businesses, the mid-market, and the enterprise segment. That's how we started off with our segmentation for the companies. And that's, of course, everything related to our ICP. And the mid-market, we split up in an upper mid-market and a lower mid-market, because we also have some differences there. So that's part of the companies itself. And we also have the buyer personas, which are the leads, of course. And we have a very extensive lead funnel at Dripl, because of course a lot of leads are coming from different ways, and you have to make sure that you nurture them in the best way possible. I'm not sure if I shared it with the Better Growth community, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people
Yeah,
already
you did.
saw my overview with the lead management and deal management structure. I showed it to a lot of companies and think I'm kind of getting famous for that structure. And the way we use lead management is to really ensure that we know which leads to target which time. And you use your lifecycle stages and your lead statuses. So your lifecycle stages are pretty known, which are just the basics one in HubSpot. I can imagine a lot of people have different ideas about creating new lifecycle stages. I'm not a really big fan of that. The HubSpot's pipeline stages are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. If you have some fancy ideas about that, I really would recommend not to go there and start new funnels. It really makes things much more complicated than it should be. And I think overcomplication, and I'm not sure if that's a real word, but I can
Let's
imagine
say
you understand what I mean. And making things more complex, we make sure that you can't really use it in the best way possible. So we make it really simple with lifecycle stages, the lead statuses, and also includes the different statuses that were, I think, best with us. It's just like 3 statuses: new, attempted to contact, and connected, and of course the nurture stage. So those 3 stages in the active leads are used to make sure leads move down the funnel as fast as possible. And you have your 4th stage, the nurture stage, which you use for different growth initiatives. In an ideal world, and we're not there yet, but if you track your nurture leads, you also want to track them. What we do today is just add tasks in HubSpot to reconnect on certain times, or add automated emails. I think that's one big tip I have. If you have like a connected leads today that you have to put into the nurture stage, and you had a real nice conversation, and you know at which time you have to get back to them, when you're at that time today, already write that email in like 5 months. You can schedule emails. I think everyone does that by now, but I schedule emails for like 6 months, or getting back to them in September after summer. Those emails are already scheduled because I know at that time, now my agenda is free, but I know in that week probably it's going to be pretty full. I'm not going to think about that lead. If you write that email today, they get it in that way, and in an ideal scenario, you put a sequence there to make sure you really grab them at that time, and then you can nurture the leads. If it's, of course, a very high qualified sales lead, but for all the nurture leads, you really put in a structure where you include them in every campaign. So we had a structure where we reuse them every half year. I think that's a fair time frame. I think some companies do it every 6 weeks. I think that's way too fast. I think every half year is a good way to get back in touch, to get back on the radar, and we do it with a different campaign. So if they come up in different channels, we put them in the nurture bucket. I call it lead buckets. I think that was a fun way to really put it. We try to fill the bucket as big as possible, and then when we have a nice campaign, we send out those campaigns to them. So then we have initiatives like bij Plasticvrij someday. We launch a new campaign with people involved, and those are often the most converting leads because they are ready or are semi-ready. to convert, and then you can push them towards the funnel.
Cool. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Also, the tip of writing the emails straight away, it also really helps because whenever you spoke to someone, yeah, the tone of voice, etc., it's also super important. And yeah, you're in the yeah, how should I say it? Yeah, you're there. The conversation just happened, so you know how to speak to that person. And maybe yeah, 6 months later, yeah, you might forget. You do a lot of sales calls, and it's a lot harder to do that.
Yeah, you're in the flow. I think that's a big tip, and I think it's very underused in sales or in marketing.
Yeah, and it's also, and I think their automation plays like a huge role. I think automation is great. We all love it. We all love HubSpot, but I think sales and marketing people tend to depend a little bit too much on automations sometimes. And also we seem to forget that the human touch in emails, etc. Some companies, I get emails, I think they didn't even do a single bit of effort to make it feel human and to make it feel personal. And yeah, writing them personally, I think that really can move the needle.
I think it's more important once they are down the funnel. I think at top of the funnel, there's a lot of things to say about that, about the automation strategy there. I think for some companies, it can be something that works. I think for Dripl, we have a very nice solution with a nice story to tell. I think automation using at top of the funnel could work pretty well. But once the leads are into the funnel and once they're connected leads or connected SQL, then of course automations won't work in the best way possible. And you really have to make sure that it's personalized or adapted to a certain campaign that really influences them. Giving them just a random email once they're in the nurture bucket won't land pretty well.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think I'm almost at the end of my series of questions that I prepared for this thing. I have a couple of questions left. Maybe let's quickly go down them and try to keep this episode within an hour. But maybe what's your biggest marketing hurdle you're working on right now, and how are you tackling it?
Yeah, I think the biggest marketing hurdle for Dripl in 2023 was finding the right talent to build on the marketing strategy. I think that's very difficult today because finding talent is, of course, for everyone very challenging, but definitely
Everyone is struggling with it, right?
everyone is struggling with it. And I think definitely in some areas, let's say marketing, I think there are a lot of people working in marketing. It's like the same in sales. There are a lot of salespeople, but in my opinion, there are not that many great salespeople, or there are not that many great marketeers. And the bar is set pretty high at Dripl to build an impact startup like this, or like we did it today. Really rely on the best people, of course, and that's been the biggest challenge for us in the last couple of months. But I can say we found some pretty exciting profiles to work with in 2025.
Do you hire remotely as well, or how do you work now?
Not today. We have a hybrid working environment, so we work at the office 2 days a week, and remotely is. I think it really depends on the stage. I think it would be an option right now. I think in the first couple of years, it's really not an option to work remotely. I think it could work as from today or as from this stage, but I think that's not the kind of company Dripl wants to be. I think we are all create a nice bunch of people, and I think it's nice to work together in a physical office. So I think that's something we won't step away from.
No, I get it, and I see whenever I see a post of Dripl or Colin or anyone in the team, yeah, it really breeds culture. You can tell it from even a LinkedIn post that the culture within Dripl is super nice. So that's I think it's a huge compliment for you guys that you really managed to do a great job there.
Thanks a lot. It's a great compliment.
Enough with the compliments. What is bothering you most in modern marketing?
Something I thought about when I read that question was I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and it's getting pretty noisy on LinkedIn. And I think a lot of people are complaining today about how LinkedIn is used or what people are posting. And of course, I don't agree that people who are doing a workation should post about their workation on LinkedIn. I don't think that's appropriate, but there's a lot of complaining on LinkedIn that it's not used in the best way and everyone is selling their products. But I'm like, yeah, that's basically what the platform is built for, to really promote your business and use your personal brand. So I really get annoyed sometimes when people also want to create posts to get some reach, to really pinpoint something that's really out of balance.
Yeah, and we have more and more people creating posts, of course. Like I read something that LinkedIn is becoming the new Facebook, which is definitely not a good thing. We should stay away from that as far as possible. I got rid of my Facebook account already more than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
because my mom's generation took over Facebook back then, I guess. So that's totally a different thing. But indeed, I agree on LinkedIn. There's a lot of negativity, and yeah, also the reach is that's how it usually goes with these social media platforms. But on LinkedIn, they are really, really killing the reach, right? I think. Whenever you did a post a couple of years ago, it was quite easy to get like 10 to 20,000 impressions, and now you can, you have to be really happy whenever you hit 2,000 impressions, as a matter of speak. So it's really hard.
Yeah, and the thing about LinkedIn is that a lot of the social channels we have today, like let's say Instagram, they're all positive things on those channels, and that's something I miss on LinkedIn: the optimism and the nice things, sharing stories about how well the business is going, or how difficult it's going to get, and getting some support. I think those messages are really nice, but people complaining about other people posting stuff, I think those people can look for other challenges.
Yeah, and it's also they're just one block away, right? Yeah, you can easily block or mute them. Okay. What's your big marketing bet for 2025?
Yeah, I think in the age of AI, it's hard to not mention that, but I think agentic AI will be the biggest thing in 2025. I think I really proved this it's here to stay. But I think the way it's going to be here will be in a different way than we use it today. We have ChatGPT, and I think I use it today a lot more than I use Google. I think that's something I didn't really expect. I think I missed the first wave, but then the second wave really started off with really using it in the best way possible. And I think the next step will be agentic AI. Really see it for the new company I'm building. All the AI agents I'm locking in to make sure I can multiply my productivity. It's pretty impressive today, and I think it will be way more impressive by summer. So I'm very excited on what's to come there.
Can you quickly share like a use case you're using an AI agent for, or?
Yeah, I have one for, I'm just testing them out. I'm using them for marketing. So I also want to make sure that for my new company, I really need to create a big content library. Of course, I can create all those things myself, but I trained an AI model to make sure that they can create content consistently on top topicals. So that's something I'm trying out today. I'm not sure if it'll be the right output today, but I can imagine in a few months whenever I'm doing things now, it will be something that will be valuable in the long term.
So the next map will be done by an agent.
Possibly.
Nice, nice. I'd love to see it. What's your favorite marketing book?
Yeah, it's a great question. Of course, I read more sales book than marketing books, but one that comes to mind is the Sales Acceleration Formula. It's not really a marketing book, but it's written by the CRO of HubSpot. I think it was really valuable in the starting days of Dripl. I lent it out to a lot of people. I think it's gone now for we'll probably
Done
find.
forever.
Yeah, he's gone forever. But that book really helped me in the first phases of really setting up the HubSpot structure and linking everything with our sales and marketing departments. So I think that's been a pivotal book. It's a book by Mark Birch on building the sales team, but also including all the marketing tactics. And it's a really nice way of including all the different leading and lagging indicators. I really liked it on that. So that's a very valuable book in terms of marketing.
Okay. And then what's your favorite marketing tool? And you can't say HubSpot because I felt it coming.
No, I think my favorite marketing tool today is LinkedIn. I think it's a big network you can use today. It's for your personal brand, but also for your company's brand. I think something that's underused for a lot of companies because they start on LinkedIn and just try some things, to try 3, 4 posts, and it didn't get the reach. But of course, it's a long-term game on LinkedIn, and I think that will be people who do it well will really benefit from that in their pipeline later this year.
Any third-party tools you are using for LinkedIn? Not necessarily to do outbound or something, but for anything else?
No, the only integration I use there is a Phantom Buster, like a couple of years ago. It still works perfectly. You can. That's what I mean with the lean tool stack. I could have tried like 30 different tools by now, but Phantom Busters work perfectly, and I still have a subscription which is pretty cheap. So that has really helped. I just use that one for some automations, but most of the things is really organically, and the biggest bot in LinkedIn today for my LinkedIn profile.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, that's always a good thing whenever you're doing everything manually on LinkedIn and LinkedIn starts to think you're a bot. I think that's the time when you're doing like a really great job.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, sometimes I get the question, how do you grow your LinkedIn? And it's like every day, 5 connections at least to make.
Manually.
Yeah, manually just going to it, and yeah, it's manual labor today.
You should print that on a t-shirt, I guess, because a lot of mostly the younger marketeers they don't know that. It's not all tools and games.
The best way to build organically an audience that really resonates with your message. And I think that's, of course, my position as a sales was, of course, a real benefactor there. And I think in marketing, it's underused because they don't see the value in creating that connections one-on-one. But in the sales context, it's, of course, makes sense. And that really helped me to also create a network of all the buyer personas we have today, and it should be used by marketing definitely to make sure that they get reach.
I recently started using like a really nice tool, and it's called Aware, getaware.com. What these guys built is like basically they built on the commenting on LinkedIn thing. It's like to grow your audience, commenting on LinkedIn is still like a great strategy. And yeah, you can build separate lists of people that you want to follow, like influencers, prospects, whatever. You build those lists so you get a separate feed in Aware with the posts and the content that these people in the lists create. And you can set yourself a common goal. Like let's say every day I want to do 5 or 10 comments.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, you see the bar progressing whenever you hit your target or not. Yeah, it's a great tool to keep you accountable and also to filter out the noise of, yeah, what LinkedIn became today.
Yeah,
You basically create your separate feed with the people of which you want to see the content, which is nice.
that's nice to have.
Okay, then maybe my final question. Basically, it's a very open question, but yeah, we have marketing and salespeople or growth people in general listening to these episodes. What closing advice would you give growth people that are just starting out?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are a lot of answers I could give here in terms of tools or a way of working, but I think the environment where you start your sorry, I'm gonna repeat that. The environment where you start your growth career really determines how you play out your next positions. I think getting into a position where you can have a big impact, not in terms of the impact on society, but really on the company, but really make sure you get the skills right to really become a very nice top-notch growth professional. I think startup environment is a perfect environment to really make sure you can grow. Of course, you have to pick the right startup, and that's not easy. Having a startup environment which is pretty small, where you can see the impact in the best way possible. Having a small team with 1 to 2 marketeers, 1 to 2 salespeople, and maybe 1 to 2 customer success managers. We were a pretty small team, and we all grew a lot because we had to work together very efficiently in the best way possible. Once you are in a team of like, let's say 15, 30 people, your impact is minimized, and also it's very difficult for you to really get a grip of the whole funnel. And I think that's important to really take the next step in your career. You can become an expert at any time, but you can't really go back from being an expert to a generalist. So building a general approach, getting somewhere into the growth flywheel in an impact startup and a marketing side, sales side, or customer success side, really make sure that you have a broad view of how the go-to-market is launched and built. I think that will be a very valuable place to be in. And of course, I'm an advocate for the sales, which is of course in the middle, and you have the broadest view. But in any case, you can really have a huge impact if you have a small team where you can make the best impact possible.
Embracing AI within that type of
Yeah,
position, probably. Yeah,
that will be necessary to make an
I
impact.
guess so.
I think that's what I mean. Like you have to be in a position where you have to be resourceful and really have to make sure you need to think quick and make sure you do the right things. You don't have any room for error, and of course errors will be made,
Yeah,
most
yeah, of course.
importantly. But it keeps you very sharp. I think in
Yeah.
my position it had to work. If I didn't work or I always, if in Dutch I always say it's like we're building the engine of the company, and if I'm in the middle of the engine, if I don't spin hard enough, the engine stops spinning. So I have to be in top shape, and you have to put yourself in a position where you have to be in top shape to keep yourself there, because you have to be accountable for some things, and think getting yourself in that position will give you the biggest growth.
Okay, let's wrap it up. I want to thank you so much, Tim. Thanks for all the valuable insights and advice. Yeah, I want to wish you and everyone who watches or listens to this podcast, yeah, a very happy New Year once again, and see everyone next week. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye bye.